Nan Chan by Tang Jiu Qing, Volume 1. Chapter 11. It was hard for Jinglin to sleep through the night. Sleep always brought with it dreams, and dreams always came bearing his past. He wanted neither dreams nor his past, so he would take naps instead. He awoke in a bare dwelling. At first, he was awake only for short periods. The physical pain was not even comparable to the agony in his fragmented spiritual expanse. The shattered pieces jutted out in all directions, piercing him so badly that even his soul hurt. When Jinglin could move, he would sit with his clothes draped around him. He could not find a reason to continue, yet he could not find a reason to end it all either. Awakened from a dream, his past gone with the wind. Spring and autumn came and went, year after year. The pain gradually receded, and his body seemed to have recovered too. Except he had lost his sword. Not only were his hands empty, there was also a void in his heart. His spiritual expanse had been damaged, and his original form was nowhere in sight. Weeping Spring had kept him company for decades, but in the end, he could not even find a fragment of it. Jinglin had had a thought once, to die in the forest and be buried beside the blade. A pity he was standing in the wind now, unable to hold on to anything except the garment on his back. Until a frolicking carp sprang out of the white porcelain jar with a splash. Jinglin touched its scales, and a lively creature swam against his fingers. They seemed to coexist, interdependent on each other. Before he knew it, the carp had turned into a child. Fair, plump fists tugged at his sleeves. The child rapidly turned into a youth, the arrogance and willfulness in his face growing ever stronger. Then he became a man in black who was now taller than himself. "You cannot escape." Frost blanketed Cangji's resolute eyes as he clutched Jinglin's wrist. "You cannot run. You will remain in my hands." Jinglin patted him on the cheek and stroked it. He traced Cangji's face, still trying to figure out where this fish came from. He had the feeling that he had met him before. He needed to get to the bottom of this. Every time he traced an inch, Cangji pulled him closer. Jinglin could barely breathe. He clutched a strand of Cangji's hair and motioned for him to loosen his grip, but Cangji merely stared at him and took his finger to his lips, kissing it wetly and hotly. "Let me eat you." Cangji put on a cunning look of aggrievement. "All right?" Jinglin had never been this hot before. He looked on blankly as Cangji kissed his fingers, not quite sure how to feel. Pursing his lips, he shook his head in fear. Cangji caressed the back of Jinglin's head like he would a child, and he kept closing in on him until their lips nearly touched. In this enchanting, clingy moment, Jinglin's breath quickened, and the world turned hazy before his eyes. Jinglin abruptly opened his eyes, his breath still hot. He turned his head, and sure enough, he saw Cangji watching him with his head propped on a hand. The night was not yet over, and it was dark inside the boat. Cangji nonchalantly turned his eyes away. Jinglin's mouth felt parched. There lingered a warmth on his lips, as if they had been in contact with something warm. Unable to tell dream from reality, he subconsciously lifted his arm to shield his face, and turned over to face the wall to cool his head. Turning a blind eye, Cangji spoke. "Chulun departed for the capital in the middle of the night to report on his mission. I couldn't sense any human aura on the cup he left behind. He should be a minor spirit." Jinglin's hair lay scattered over the pillow mat. He could still feel Cangji's breath in the dream lingering in his mouth when he attempted to speak. Closing his eyes, he remained quiet, and when he opened them again, he was his own calm and composed self again. "He's a brush spirit, and he recognized me. They call you the Spirit Slayer." Cangji lay down. No wonder he tried to flee. But the interesting thing is in what the others had to say about him. Most had the same comment. "What? It's like he's two different people." "Two different people?" Chulun was indeed a mortal. He was born into a poor family in a small village in Dongxiang. His parents passed away, and he was only able to continue with his studies thanks to his relatives. He was born weak and probably with a handicap in his legs, but he was good at studying. By age 12, he was known across the county for his poetry. The prefectural magistrate of Dongxiang recommended him repeatedly, so he was able to enter the capital at 19, but he failed the imperial examination twice. He was even more diligent in his studies after returning home, and his wish has finally been fulfilled now that he's won the top scholar title. But some people said his temperaments changed greatly since he entered the capital the third time to take the imperial examination. In what way? No idea. Tang Ji closed his eyes. We probably won't find many details out here, but there must be someone in the capital who knows. Then, he spoke no further, perhaps asleep. Jinglin stared at the wall in silence until the day broke. The capital was located in the southwest. It took them merely half a month to reach by river. The further west they went, the more frequently they came across demarcation bureaus and the boundary keepers stationed there, which minor spirits had to stay away from. Jinglin's relationship with Cangji was still in a stalemate, but that did not stop Jinglin from giving Cangji pointers on how to utilize his spiritual energy. Half a month was too brief a period, however, and by the time the boat reached shore, Cangji had yet to fully grasp the crux of it. Jinglin disembarked into blazing hot weather. Travelers from all over thronged the well-organized and bustling streets of the capital. Small passenger boats in the port stood against towering dragon boats, coming and going through waterways in an orderly fashion to the city din. Rows of tall buildings stretched as far as the eye could see, culminating in the magnificent, towering palace complex. Tangji laughed. He looked around him. The so-called divine palace of the Court of Immortality was nothing special after all. How could it be compared to the vibrancy of the mortal world? Dancers wove amidst the crowds, the gold bangles on their hands and silver bells on their feet ringing crisp and clear with every step. A flute-playing traveler walked along, drawing the passing dancers into a dance. Sheer fabric of various colors twirled in the air. Vast was the mortal world where mountains stood for time immemorial, fostering the hubbub of human life for innumerous generations. The divine Lady Sheng Yue watched over this place. Omnipresent and ethereally beautiful, she lived as long as the heavens, and her mind was one with the earth. For this reason, even though she was nowhere in sight the day Lord Jiutian established a new world order, he still honored her as an esteemed guest. Not even Jinglin had seen her before. The two found an inn, which was unfortunately also run by a spirit, except the spirits in the capital were on a completely different level. A feather fan was being used to flick golden abacus beads when Cangji stepped through the door of the inn. The abacus itself was inlaid with precious gems along the border, giving it a luxurious air. The haughty proprietress sitting behind it wore on each finger rings as large as pigeon eggs. Splendidly dressed, she cut a poised figure. 9 furry tails swung lazily beside her legs. Cangji had seen a fox spirit before, but this was his first time seeing a 9-tailed fox spirit. Slender fingers resting on the fan, she looked them over with a pair of alluring eyes. 50 gold for a room, she quoted lazily. Don't grumble if you find it expensive. Pay up, and you can choose a room as you please. If you can't, then go elsewhere. We don't take in paupers here. Cangji slid 2 fingers across the countertop, and gold pieces and precious gems clattered down, forming a resplendent trail. The proprietress did not even look at them as she lowered the feather fan and eyed Cangji. Your facial features are pleasing to the eyes, and your gaze is penetrating. What a good face you were born with. This is the most popular look among the spirits. There's no hurry to settle the bill just yet. Just for your face alone, I'll provide for your entertainment in the capital. All those fair and refined looks are everywhere. What we want is precisely your—" She mumbled something, then leaned over suddenly. You bear a striking resemblance to the Dragon Emperor of the North. Cangji did not know who this Dragon Emperor of the North was, but Jinglin raised his brows at the fox. The proprietress gave a faint snort. "You are in good luck. Of all things, I have a fondness for the Dragon Emperor's type. Your food and drink are all in the house. Go up and choose a room for yourselves." Ignoring them after saying this, she went inside with her fan and let the hanging screen down to play cards. A little fox holding a tray and serving at the side flapped his ears and wagged his tail as his bare paws trod lightly on the red rug. Fair-faced, with rosy cheeks and bright almond eyes, he lifted the curtain and curtsied to them. "Please come with me, gentlemen." Tang Jiu followed him in. The stairs were broad, and the furnishings were opulent all around. Slowing down, he walked alongside Jinglin. Before the Court of Immortality was established, both the dragon and phoenix occupied the northern regions, Jinglin began quietly. Later, the phoenix headed south and joined forces with the sect of immortality to fight against evil. Only the dragon remained in the north and refused to budge. There were countless major spirits under his command, and his honorific title was the Dragon Emperor. Afterwards, this title was used by many lesser spirits, so they added North to his posthumous title to honor him. "He's already dead," Tang Jiu said. "Why not just give his title to others to have fun with?" "That won't do." Tang Jiu looked at him out of the corner of his eye. "Why do deities have a say in this matter?" Jinglin stepped up the stairs. A slight pause later, he answered, "They don't." "Then what does this dragon have to do with you? Is he a friend of Li Rong?" Jinglin came to the door, and the little fox pushed it open, welcoming them in. But when Jinglin blanked out for a moment, Tang Jiu shoved him in from behind with his chest. The little fox closed the door after them and retreated. "He has nothing to do with me," Jinglin replied. "He's not a friend of Li Rong either." Tang Jiu made a vague noise of acknowledgement, neither probing further nor continuing the conversation. He stepped around Jinglin and poured a cup of tea for himself. A while later, he heard several little foxes standing outside the door announcing cheerfully, "We've prepared some drinks for you at the hot springs of the northern courtyard. If both gentlemen are interested, you may head there any time to relieve yourselves of the summer heat." The room was silent. A moment later, Tang Jiu opened the door, stepped out, and descended the stairs to check out the fun. He tossed a gold piece to one of the foxes. "Lead the way. The rest of you, stay here and attend to him. He'll make his way there later." The fox caught the gold piece and followed Tang Jiu, while the others stayed behind to wait. Sure enough, Jinglin emerged a while later with a new change of clothes and headed for the bath. The little fox was called Xiyan. He was just over 100 this year. The proprietress had personally raised him the whole time, and thus he knew all about the entertainment spots in the capital. Tang Jiu was generous with his money, handsome, and forthright. Gradually, Xiyan dropped his guard around him, even addressing him with familiar terms when they walked together. "Your boss mentioned the Dragon Emperor of the North. Who's he?" Tang Jiu asked nonchalantly. "Oh, you don't know?" Much shorter than Tang Jiu, Xiyan carried the guest's purchases as he followed behind, bobbing his head. "I guess that's to be expected. You must have been in the East all this time concentrating on cultivating, so you aren't aware of other matters. The Dragon Emperor was renowned among the spirits. Even my boss, Miss Huashang's, admired him for many years. Every time she spoke about his stories, she'd hide her face behind the fan and weep." "What stories?" Tang Jiu prompted. "Let's hear them." "The Dragon Emperor resided in his territory in the north. He turned down Lord Jiutian thrice, refusing to have any contact with him. This was because, for a very long time, he had gathered an army of spirits all on his own to fight against the Sea of Blood. Thus, he was unwilling to bow down to another entity. As such, the alliance with the court fell through 6 times. It's really strange if you think about it, because the sect of immortality had become the most powerful organization in the world, and Lord Jiutian's 8 sons were all well-reputed, distinguished men. There were a great number of capable spirits under the Dragon Emperor's command, but if they were to really clash with the sect, both sides would have only ended up suffering heavy casualties. Heavy casualties? So be it. Tossing some money in his hand, Tang Jiu leaned against the railing and squinted his eyes against the sun. What's his name? Lord Jiu. It's obvious he used the excuse of joining forces to resist evil in order to seize power from all around. No matter how you put it, he doesn't seem to be a virtuous ruler who has the interests of the common folk in mind. If he could take the position of common ruler of heaven and earth, then why couldn't the Dragon Emperor? Rather than be an underling, one might as well be free and unfettered. Xian poked his ears out from the bundles of goods and gasped in astonishment. How did you know the Dragon Emperor thought this way? Miss Huashang said he never yielded to the sect, but he'd always stood firm in the dangerous zones of the north, never letting the evil demons advance even an inch. Later on, when the Sea of Blood was defeated, the Sect of Immortality changed its name to the Court of Immortality, and Lord Jiu became the ruler of the three realms, the Supreme Father. All of the individuals involved were rewarded according to their meritorious deeds, but the Dragon Emperor remained in the north and paid them no attention. There was nothing Lord Jiu could do about him, so he sent Lord Shaga to persuade him. At first, neither side harbored resentment toward each other, but for some reason, Lord Shaga suddenly turned hostile and started a great battle with the Dragon Emperor in the northern lands. His ears drooped as he continued. Miss Huashang said Li Rong must have resorted to some kind of cunning. Otherwise, how would he have been able to fight against the Dragon Emperor, given that his own cultivation had yet to reach the great accomplishment stage? Sounds like the Dragon Emperor lost to Li Rong. Li Rong also hacked off his scales and scraped away his flesh, Xian said, as per the instructions of the Court of Immortality, who wanted to sever the dragon's line of descent. Since then, there's been no sighting of a dragon. They had to make sure the dragon could never come back to haunt them. Tang Jiu laughed. But something odd happened because of this. Xian leaned over the railing and tilted his head as he nibbled on a sugar figure. Something odd? According to the current Chronicles of Gods, Lord Shaga took the first place in terms of meritorious military service. But in absolute terms, Lord Linsong tops all, because he'd been roaming the Middle Realm even before the Sea of Blood appeared. As they say, Weeping Spring, the slayer of evil spirits, but ghosts and deities alike have perished under the mighty sword. His title might not have sounded as deadly, but he wielded his sword with swift efficiency. Despite the power, he still discerned between good and evil. He never hurt the innocent nor harmed good spirits. The strange thing is that the Dragon Emperor was killed by Li Rong, and Lord Linsong had nothing to do with the Emperor. Yet the rumor went that the brothers parted ways with each other because of that incident, and avoided each other ever since. Even stranger still, after losing their chief, any spirit who declared themselves king and took on the title Dragon Emperor for themselves all met their ends under Weeping Spring. Eventually, everyone shied away from calling themselves the Dragon Emperor. Lord Linsong essentially preserved the Dragon Emperor's honorific title for him, and Miss Huashang said we owe a debt of gratitude to him for that. We just never expect him to slay the Supreme Father later. I guess you could somehow see it as revenge for the Dragon Emperor. Tang Jiu could not fathom it. Did they know each other? Unexpectedly, Xian shook his head. They didn't, he answered, also baffled. I heard that Lord Linsong had never even seen the Dragon Emperor. They did fight side by side once during the Battle of the Sea of Blood, but Miss Huashang said Lord Linsong and the Dragon Emperor weren't acquainted with each other, and it was only during the deployment of troops that they might have brushed past each other amongst thousands and thousands of soldiers. Other than that, they had no further interaction. While Tang Jiu was still figuring things out, Zuishan had left Soulhold. Carrying his staff, he had only taken a few steps when someone pulled him back by the collar. He did not even have to look because he heard Dongjun's voice. I wanted to make a trip to the Sea of Blood, but that guard dog blocked my way. He always shows you consideration, so I'll have to trouble you to go with me. Why are you going there out of the blue? Zuishan frowned and turned back. Dongjun paced amongst the clouds. I haven't been to see Li Rong for a long time. I miss him a lot. Bullshit. Zuishan flicked his sleeves and made to leave. Hey, hold on. Dongjun went around to Zuishan and stood before him, refusing to let him pass. Why can't I miss my brother? Why did you turn your back on me again? Come with me. I have something important to ask. Li Rong's body has sunk into the sea of blood, and his consciousness has descended to the mortal realm. Nobody's there to answer your question. You must be planning to stir up trouble again. I always go by the book, and I'm much more disciplined than you are. You said earlier that his consciousness has descended to the mortal realm, but I've never heard the Supreme Lord mention it, Dongjun mused. There's really a reason why I wish to see Li Rong. He did not seem to be lying, so after a moment of hesitation, Zuishan led him there. After the battle, the sea of blood was subdued and confined beneath Soulhold, guarded by celestial warriors. Zuishan was the Grand Secretary of Soulhold and its custodian, with authority only surpassed by Li Rong. With him leading, Dongjun was able to enter with ease. Dongjun could not blame the gatekeeping deities for being strict, though. His controversial background meant he should never step foot into this place so as to avoid a scandal, but that was also why Zuishan believed he truly had important matters to settle. The two descended. All around them were evil suppression spells embedded into the structure as golden flowing scripts. Even an ordinary evil being would be hard-pressed to walk through this passage, much less spirits, and Dongjun, despite his terrifying original form, still felt stabbing pain in his soles. The heart of the spell was where a heavy spear covered in frost stood, Lord Shaga's weapon, Evil Breaker. Dongjun pulled out a handkerchief from his sleeve and covered his mouth and nose as he passed by the spear, feeling a little sick due to the overwhelming amount of malice and power dormant in the weapon. Just going a little nearer gave him the chills. Seeing this, Zuishan clucked. Your action reminds me. I've been thinking lately about how familiar that man seemed to me. Looking at you. He was definitely imitating you. That disguise and those upturned eyes. If his cultivation were to be even more profound, he'd be your twin, wouldn't he? Are pigs flying now? To think you're observing in detail now. Dongjun passed the spear and wiped his sweat. He was imitating me all along. Although he did not master every one of my movements, he'd already more or less learnt those mannerisms that would raise suspicions. Hey, if he commits some shocking transgression, and some single-minded fool reports it to the court, I'd be hard-pressed to clear my name. There's nothing in this world that you can't clear up with your tongue. Zuishan halted in his tracks, right where the stone slabs under their feet ended. Before them, the endless redness of the sea of blood roiled with countless faces of humans within. Howls of the dead filled their ears. How is he asleep? Dongjun whispered. They're creating such a din, and he managed to sleep for 5 centuries. If it were me, I wouldn't last a second. He was fatally injured that day. We didn't expect him to go to sleep here. Zuishan flung his staff out, and golden light forced apart a narrow path. He stepped onto it and continued. Weeping Spring went straight through his chest. Lord Linsong really didn't hold back. Come to think of it, it's strange. It's been baffling me for centuries. Dongjun spoke slowly. It's one thing for evil to enter a body and deceive a child. For so many years, Jinglin had been upholding the way of the light with his sword. The most remarkable part about him was this aspect of his. This was Lord Linsong, whose original form was a sword. How could he have suddenly turned so hostile that he could even stab Li Rong? The ground was soaked in blood that day. Good thing father was in a sound sleep. Otherwise, it'd be another feud between father and son. That would have been even more exciting than brothers falling out with each other. Watch your mouth. The audacity of you to say such words. Zuishan turned back to reprimand him. If not for possession by an evil being, then what? Don't tell me he was possessed by a ghost. He killed his father and his brother, which nullified all his past achievements. He'd become evil. Dongjun tapped his lips with his fan. Just some idle chat. No need to take it seriously. Zuishan dropped the matter. Having already stopped in his tracks, he made way for Dongjun. A few steps beyond, Dongjun saw a platform constructed out of dark stone where Lord Xiaoge was lying. Dongjun circled around him once. I didn't notice it then, but was it Li Rong who picked up the pieces after Jinglin was pulverized? No, Zuishan replied. By then, Li Rong could barely move due to his serious injuries, and his consciousness was too far gone. It was left to Yining to clean up. Dongjun spread open his fan. I heard that Yining's been with the Supreme Lord ever since the sect was established. He probably was friends with Jinglin, too. Zuishan was not a fool. He promptly retorted, Surely you don't suspect he'd done something on the sly, do you? Don't make reckless accusations regarding the various lords of the Court of Immortality. Besides, Yining wasn't well acquainted with Jinglin. During the reign of Lord Jotian, he repeatedly denounced Jinglin for not being social and amiable. So I see. Dongjun's interest was piqued. For some reason, he smiled. This will be interesting. You said Li Rong's consciousness has descended to the human realm. Do you mean he's forgotten all about the past and is now undergoing tribulations? That's right. The battle with Jinglin injured him a good deal. I'm afraid he realized he'd bear grudges before he fell asleep, so he chose this time and place to initiate the tribulations. We all know it's the inner demons that are the hardest to defeat. It'd be better to forget it all, immerse himself into the human world, re-experience the 8 sufferings, and achieve enlightenment to regain his true self. In that case, he should be in the middle realm too. Being the authority in charge, do you know where he's been reborn? He'd achieved the great accomplishment stage, Zuishan said. Nobody could possibly track him down. He's forgotten everything and descended to search anew for enlightenment, so he wouldn't want us looking for him. Wait for another few centuries to ask him. Perhaps you'll be able to get your answer then. Why would I want to wait for him? I may have a comfortable job, but I'm a hard-working, passionate being who can't stand idleness. Dongjun scanned Li Rong's sleeping face. It's just that there's something bothering me lately, and I can't figure it out, so I thought I'd ask him. And what's that? Zuishan asked. If it's about Lord Linsong, I'd advise you not to get involved. The Supreme Lord's without family now. It's so nerve-wracking every time his brothers are mentioned, since he takes out his anger on us. Why would you want to stir up a hornet's nest? What are you anxious for? Dongjun closed his fan and turned around. When have I said I was going to get involved? Buddha oversaw this matter, and Li Rong made his report with so many eyes watching. There's nothing in this case worthy enough for me to review. And that's it? When Zuishan saw that he was only here for a tour, he flew into a rage. You deceived me. Do this again the next time, and I'll beat the crap out of you. Dongjun gave a wry smile and said nothing further. The sky was darkening when Jinglin returned to their room. Cangji, who seemed to have been waiting, turned when he heard the door open. In the instant their eyes met, Cangji sensed the moist heat from Jinglin's skin. Both hastily averted their gazes. Chulun's staying on Chonghua Street, Cangji said. Jinglin's hair was damp. He hummed in acknowledgement. Cangji rose to put on his outer garment and strode past him to head downstairs. Jinglin arrived later and saw the proprietress, Huashang, leaning against the cabinet while Xian painted her nails. She sighed and looked askance at Jinglin. A piece of advice for you. Huashang flicked her tails. Spiritual energy leaking is an imminent catastrophe. You can hide among the common folk all you want, but those with a keen smell will be able to detect it. Lady Shongyue governs this place, but whether she saves you or not when the time comes will depend on your luck. Jinglin nodded his thanks and stepped out. The night market during the summer was brightly lit. Although there were few women around, the place was packed. Slightly ahead of Jinglin, Cangji led him through the crowd. Jinglin was so frail that he seemed to be buried as he walked amongst the people. He was like a wandering soul, his complexion pale and delicate under the light and shadows. An arm swung out before him, and a veiled barefoot dancer twirled slowly before him. Her exotic eyes were bashful and timid. Silver bells jingled as a tune from a peepaw rang out. The crowd cheered and cleared out a space around Jinglin, leaving him surrounded by red gauze and silver bells. The dancer spun around him, sending a faint, titillating scent into the air. Her laughter accompanied the music as she vaguely traced Jinglin's facial features with her fingertips, and the tip of her tongue flicked into sight. A serpent spirit. "You're so dashing," she gushed in a soft voice. "Why don't we—" The beauty had yet to finish her words when she saw the frostiness in the eyes of the dashing man. So piercing was it that she retreated in alarm. "Excuse me," Jinglin said flatly as he walked around her. Tang Jiu looked on as Jinglin walked over to him. "You're so unromantic." "I could say the same of you." Jinglin frowned and sniffed the fragrance on his body. Hovering an arm around Jinglin, Tang Jiu looked back as he lowered his head to avoid a lantern. The serpent was still in a state of trepidation. When she saw Tang Jiu's stare, she staggered back again, looking quite the sorry sight. After passing the lantern, Tang Jiu retracted his hand. Jinglin did not seem to be aware. After crossing several streets, they finally reached Chonghua Street. The area was jam-packed with scholars and learned men, while brothels were common sights. Tang Jiu lifted the curtain and went straight up the stairs. But when they arrived at Chu Lun's quarters, it was empty. The sound of the bells faint. Jinglin looked down from the railings. He must be nearby. Tang Jiu's nose twitched as he reached the door. "What's that smell?" "The scent of the beauty." "I'm not talking about you." Tang Jiu swept his finger at the edge of the door and sniffed. "There's a non-human scent here. It's the same scent as the one he left on the cup that day." Tang Jiu took a step closer and turned his fingertip toward Jinglin for him to take a sniff. Jinglin leaned his head towards Tang Jiu's chest, looking as though he was throwing himself into Tang Jiu's arms. "That's the smell of a brush," Jinglin said. "It's similar to the smell of books, but there are still some differences." "A brush spirit," Tang Jiu said. "What does he want to do on behalf of Chu Lun? Be a mandarin?" "We'll know when we meet him." Jinglin shifted and pulled away from Tang Jiu. Since he recognized me, he wouldn't easily reveal himself. "If the bells latched onto him, he won't be able to run. It's just that he saw through your disguise." Tang Jiu scrutinized the door. "Common spirits cannot do that. He's probably seen you before." "I've never used this face." "Could he be a wolf in sheep's clothing?" "A brush spirit," Jinglin repeated. "It's hard for a typical brush to gain sentience and become a spirit. This must have been a very special brush made of a rare material. Perhaps it's been used by an immortal." "An acquaintance. Do you have someone in mind?" Jinglin looked at him. "As it happens, I do." "Who?" As the word came out of Tang Jiu's mouth, they heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Dressed in a wide-sleeved attire of a scholar, Chu Lun was holding a packet of oil paper in his hand. Seeing two distinguished men standing before his door, he was at first startled before he raised his hands to say his greetings. "If I may, what's the reason for your visit, gentlemen?" he asked, being neither obsequious nor supercilious. Tang Jiu and Jinglin exchanged glances as the same thought came to mind. He was truly like a different person. Chu Lun was gifted, having had a perfect memory ever since childhood. He was certain he had never seen the two men before, so he was on alert after saying his greetings. Jinglin returned his greetings, promptly turning from the profligate master into a modest gentleman. "I'm Lin Jing of Donghai. I made your acquaintance aboard a river boat half a month ago. Perhaps you still remember me?" An intriguing one, Chu Lun was able to hide his emotions perfectly, looking neither dismayed nor flustered. He answered in all sincerity, "I beg your pardon, but I don't remember you. May I know the purpose of your visit today?" Jinglin gave a suggestive smile. "I had too much to drink that night, hence the memory lapse," Chu Lun clarified. "Please, just speak your mind." "You seemed to have some pressing matters to attend to," Jinglin responded. "Before you left in a hurry, you borrowed 50 gold pieces. I'm ashamed to say this, but this is my first time in the capital, and before I knew it, I had squandered away the money my family had given me. That's why I'm paying you a visit tonight. Is there any evidence? You were in quite a rush, Jinglin said, abashed. We didn't put it into writing. Since there was no written evidence, Chulun could simply deny it, but he tacitly acknowledged it as if this was a common occurrence for him. As luck would have it, Chulun finally looked somewhat embarrassed. I'd be hard-pressed to gather 50 gold for quite a while. Why don't we put it down in writing tonight? I'll repay you the next time you call on me. All right, Jinglin assented, presenting a gentle front. Chulun led both of them into the room. Although he was the new top scholar, he was only assigned to the Hanlin Academy, and his rank and official post were still unknown. He had to wait for the ministry to discuss and finalize it, which was why he was putting up here for now. The furnishings were simple, making it obvious that Chulun was rather short of money. He was about to be an official of the imperial court, yet he did not even have a servant. Tang Jiu glanced around to search for the scent, but he did not see any brush. It did not take long for the document to be drafted and signed. Jinglin and Chulun engaged in civilities for a moment before they bade each other farewell, and Chulun saw them out. Tang Jiu discovered that once Jinglin had put on a disguise, he would become another person, the kind who was a natural when deceiving others. As they were about to leave, another Chulun stepped through the door, coming face to face with them. This Chulun had never expected to bump right into his nightmare. The color drained from his face as he stepped back in horror. Without so much as a word, he turned, jumped off the railings, and took to his heels. Slowly nudging the document into his sleeve, Jinglin asked the other Chulun behind him, I never knew you had a twin brother. Panicking, Chulun promptly spread out his arms to block them. Please hold on. That's indeed my brother. It's just that... He's a spirit. Tang Jiu leaned against the door and watched with a smile. Runs pretty fast, too. Since we've seen the real debtor tonight, Jinglin said, we won't bother you any further. Chulun wanted to stop them, but they disappeared right before his eyes. Lifting his robes, he descended the stairs to give chase, but his legs would not cooperate, and he tumbled down the stairs, looking quite the sorry sight. Someone at the side of the street recognized him as the top scholar. Chulun rose to his feet, staggering, but he could no longer find any traces of the other three. The brush spirit ran like he had never run before. He leapt onto the roofs along the street like a frightened rabbit fleeing along the uneven eaves. Jinglin strolled idly along, while Tang Jiu charged ahead. The brush sensed a gust of chilly wind trailing behind him, but no matter how hard he tried, he could not shake it off. Sobbing aloud as he dashed ahead, the brush looked back and yelled at Tang Jiu without a care for dignity. The Lord isn't even giving chase, so why don't you leave me alone? Tang Jiu leapt to a stop. The brush crashed into his chest and fell to the ground, where he reverted back to his original appearance, a good-looking young man. Startled, the brush cried and looked back at the path he had come from, only to see Jinglin standing there. I don't want to die, he wailed as he covered his face and rolled on the ground. I've never done anything wrong. If I've ever spoken ill of you, it wasn't out of my own volition. Whose brush were you? Jinglin asked. The brush did not answer. Jinglin was about to ask again when he noticed a change in the night sky. A claw suddenly materialized out of the clouds, and the massive head of a wolf spirit popped out. What a delicious smell! The wolf spirit scanned the scene below and fixed his eyes on Tang Jiu in a stare. He gave a snort. It's a rule in the capital that spirits may not hunt without permission. Where are you from, minor spirits? The gall of you to break the rules. The wolf gave a mighty jerk. Whispers amongst numerous spirits in the capital echoed. Rules? Huashang, who was drying her fingers by the window, retorted. You just want a share of the food after catching a whiff. Even so, an old tortoise fishing under the bridge drawled, you shouldn't be fighting on the eaves. Your private grudge is trivial, but if you attract the attention of the Demarcation Bureau, everyone will get into trouble. Old geezer, keep hiding in your shell like a coward. Huashang's pearl hairpin swayed slightly as she rose and swung her tails. Who do the Demarcation Bureau think they are? When we were still under the Dragon Emperor's command with the Middle Realm under our thumbs, they were merely beggars in the streets. Now that the tables have turned, we have to be at their mercy even when we eat? The aroma of the brush intensified, and the wolf salivated even more. He tore apart the clouds, revealing himself, and leaned over to study Tang Ji and Jinglin. Rules are meant to be broken. I could sit back and do nothing. As long as one of you comes with me, you may deal with this brush spirit as you please. How would one of us be enough to fill your stomach? Tang Ji retorted. Why don't you take both of us? This one and I can be a pair of lovers in death. Then wouldn't this pitiful brush be all alone? Jinglin chimed in. Just eat all three of us. The brush burst into tears. I don't want to die. The way I see it, you have a death wish, Jinglin hissed. The brush trembled and stuttered. Lord. The roof underfoot rumbled and collapsed, and the brush's words were cut off as he fell into the hole. Tang Ji's robe fluttered as the wolf pounced at them, its swooping figure so huge and shocking that the eaves shook violently, sending the bells underneath colliding loudly with one another. The wolf was not only massive, but also fast. Tang Ji saw a blurry shadow, and steely claws swiped towards his brows. Dodging the blow, Tang Ji flitted across the roof ridge, preventing the wolf from even grazing the corner of his robe. This was by no means an unfamiliar scene, as the same thing had happened the first time Jinglin dueled with Zui Shan. Dongjun was correct in his guess. Despite having the ability to devour everything, Tang Ji would not necessarily turn out to be a source of calamity. This was because he had no guide, so he would not be able to release his potential to its fullest, no matter how much spiritual energy he had. But what Dongjun had never considered was that the most suitable teacher had always been right under his nose. Tang Ji's taunting attitude and moves sent the wolf into a rage. This was a mere carp. His cultivation might have been unusually high, but the disparity between them was still wide, yet he managed to lead the wolf around by the nose. Infuriated, the wolf sent out a blast of strong wind as its fist, swirling with dark clouds, went right for Tang Ji's abdomen. There are but two kinds of formidable foes. The tough and unyielding ones are unstoppable, akin to flood waters breaking through sand crashing on land. Do not fear when you're faced with such foes. Fear leads to confusion. Confusion leads to distraction. And distraction leads to exposure of your vulnerabilities, which the enemy can exploit. I won't be afraid anyway, Tang Ji said. To have no fear is to face it head-on. And that means an assured victory? Do not rush, Jinglin said without looking up from the scroll. Wear him down first. Play him like a puppet on a string. Tang Ji blocked the fist, but the force of the black cloud sent his robe flapping. His spiritual energy instantly congregated, and a thin light resembling a mirror surface warded off the force, snagging the wolf's arm such that the latter could not extract himself. The wolf roared, expecting to go with it and catch hold of Tang Ji, but Tang Ji moved like a drunken wave he couldn't grasp, and the wolf lost the opportunity. The next second, a piercing pain tore through his arm as Tang Ji swung and hurled him up and away with terrifying force. All at once, the eaves along the street exploded into pieces, strewing lanterns all over. An entire roof collapsed as the wolf crashed into a house. Though in pain, the wolf grabbed hold of Tang Ji's arm, but the carp allowed himself to be caught. Doors and windows shattered, not because Tang Ji attacked, but by the crushing force of his aura. The tactic was none other than one used by Zui Shan and Dongjun to awe and cow him. The wolf's spiritual expanse was churning like the raging sea. It was as if that invisible but intimidating power was pushing against his throat, far more dangerous than a punch and kick. The wolf felt grossly humiliated to be flung and pinned to the ground by a fish. How could he stand this shame? Straining his sturdy limbs, and with a massive sweep of his giant tail, he revealed his true form. Once the enemy's worn down, his fury will grow, Tang Ji said. If it were Zui Shan, he'd be utilizing his original form. But what should I do if my true form isn't his match? Jinglin flipped a page and raised his head slightly. Well, Tang Ji prompted. Anger clouds the mind. Jinglin tapped his finger against the edge of the cup. Just beat him like you want him dead. A mere moment after the wolf revealed his true form, tough scales enveloped Tang Ji's arms like indestructible armor. The howl had yet to leave the wolf's mouth when it pounced on Tang Ji. Massive fangs crushed Tang Ji's shoulder, but they could not tear through the scales. Tang Ji grabbed the wolf's head. Before the wolf could react, Tang Ji slammed him against the wall. The wolf whined. Even if he let go of the carp's shoulder, there was no way for him to escape. Another resounding crash. The wall broke. The wolf kicked the floor as his head was smothered by a scaly claw that slammed him into the wall. The force of the aura pressed towards the brush. Realizing he was in big trouble, the brush tried to break into a run. Jinglin floated to the ground and grabbed him by the collar. I haven't finished with my questions. Where are you going? The words had only just left Jinglin's mouth when the wolf crawled out between the smashed walls before him, choking. There was a claw wound on his back, and his hind paws were limp against the floor. He had the life beaten out of him by a mere carp, and he was trying to escape with his tail between his legs. He had yet to take a step when Tang Ji hauled him back by the tail. The wolf no longer cared about his dignity as he sprawled on the ground and wailed for mercy. He initially thought of Tang Ji as just a fish. Greed had gotten the better of him when he saw Tang Ji's brimming spiritual expanse. Although he was not as mighty and awe-inspiring as the nine-tailed Huashang, he had never expected to be defeated and reduced to this state in the blink of an eye. I was foolish, the wolf spirit pleaded. Have mercy. Spare me. Although it had not been long since Tang Ji came into being, he had only been sparring with Zui Shan. In terms of prowess, how could the wolf compare to Zui Shan's swift and mighty demon-bane? Tang Ji turned his claws back into fingers and grabbed hold of the wolf by his scruff. The tip of his nose twitched slightly. Spare you what? He asked with a smile. Spare my life. Tang Ji smoothed the wolf's fur. But I'm starving, too, he said wickedly. The brush started trembling, and his breathing grew ragged. Scrambling backwards, he curled into a ball and covered his eyes, too scared to watch. Jinglin waited in silence until he heard the brush sobbing and asking him a question amidst the wolf's howls. My lord, you once slew spirits and subdued evil. The young man covered his face and wept. So how can you bear to watch the spirit devour another spirit as he desires? Frightened out of his wits, the brush covered his ears with his arms, closed his eyes, and burst out wailing. He could not understand it. Lord Lin Song slew spirits to defend the righteous way, so how could he indulge such behavior? Jinglin seemed to smile as his icy fingers brushed aside the brush's stray hairs. Lowering his frosty eyes to the young man, he replied, The path I walked is no more. The wind brushed against his sleeves. A chill ran down the brush's spine. Softly he sobbed, too scared to breathe under Jinglin's gaze. Lord Lin Song is dead. The thought flashed through the brush's mind. The wolf was in dire straits, but none of the spirits who had spoken out earlier came to his aid. Tang Ji finally got to eat his fill, wasting no time getting started, so it was all over in a flash. Stepping out from the ruins, he saw Jinglin stroking the brush's hair, saying, The path I walked is no more. The brush had stopped crying and was kneeling with his head lowered. When Tang Ji approached, the brush visibly shrank back. Feeling sated, Tang Ji washed his hands with a pot of water from a stall along the street. His silky smooth hands showed no sign of the terrifying scales. Since we're done horsing around, let's have a heart-to-heart chat. Tang Ji wiped his hand before lifting the brush by his collar. Then, as if hauling a gunny sack, he threw the brush onto a wooden stool. Knocked off balance, The brush nearly fell flat on his back. He wanted to cry again, but Tang Ji gave the stool a hard kick and caused him to fall on his butt to the ground. Now he was too afraid to cry, and could only hold back his tears as he looked at them. "Whose brush were you?" Jinglin repeated his question. "Sage Yining's," the brush said tearfully. Yining was not well known because he had not made any outstanding contributions, nor did he have a talent for counsel, despite having spent several years under the command of Lord Jiutian. He was more like a shadow of the various deities. But while he did not stand out, he was omnipresent, which was his one and only duty. He did not have an official post as a deity, and only took orders from Lord Jiutian. All throughout the realms, even the mere rustle of leaves in the wind would not escape his ears, and that meant it would not escape Lord Jiutian's ears either. Even though he had not made any significant achievements, he won the favor of Lord Jiutian. However, he had an eccentric temper. The few times he made a scene was to censure Lord Linsong before Lord Jiutian. So, while he had no personal ties to Jinglin, they were no strangers to each other. He loathed Jinglin to such an extent that he had once penned a scathing essay the length of a man to criticize him. As Yining's brush, one could hardly fault the spirit for being so afraid. In all probability, Yining had used it to pen all those articles, which was how he knew Lord Linsong in such detail. After a pause, Jinglin continued, "How is it possible that you can wander around the Middle Realm alone when Yining's still around?" At this question, the brush, who had been holding back his tears, started wailing again, crying so bitterly he even hiccuped. This was all Lord Dongjun's fault. The brush spirit wiped away his tears. He had nothing to do, so he took me without permission and wrote on Buddha's altar. As a result, the monks lodged a complaint against him to Lord Chengtian, who took it out on the sage and punished him to reflect on his mistakes in solitude. The more the sage thought about it, the more furious he was, and he said, "I don't want what's been touched by Dongjun." So he cast me down to the mortal realm, where I'm all alone and helpless, with no family or friends. How miserable! "There's no one to bother you here," Songji teased him. "How carefree." "I'm petrified," the brush stuttered like a weakling. "There are spirits everywhere. I'm too weak to lift anything. I can't beat anyone. I can barely eat or sleep well every day, and I can't drink ink nor write anymore. I'm terrified." Speaking of which, the brush was rather special. Although he was a spirit, he had kept a deity company, and for that reason he did not like the company of spirits. He was also a little dull after having resided in the Court of Immortality all this while. Yining often scolded him too, and now his courage was close to non-existent. Just a scare would make him reveal his true form and cause him to cry non-stop. After descending to the mortal realm, he would even take to his heels if he came across a rabbit spirit that was just a little sturdier than average. He would never get into a fight. Yet, his scent lingered, making spirits salivate over him. As time passed, he became an old hand at fleeing. "If you are on the run, why are you staying with Chulun?" Tangji asked. "Don't tell me you helped him to cheat." To his surprise, the brush leapt to his feet, wanting to refute him, but on seeing Tangji's gaze, he deflated. Hanging his head in dejection, he said, Don't put it that way. Shenji, that's his courtesy name, he's a man of learning. He was always supposed to be the top scholar. He didn't need me to help. I may be a spirit, but I wouldn't have tolerated such conduct. Shenji would never cheat. If you say that again, I'll fight, talk reason with you." "You got acquainted with Chulun." Jinglin picked up the copper pieces rolling out of the rubble, "and spent day and night together. You've even accompanied him to the capital. I'm afraid it's not just friendship you have with him." I have an appreciation for talented minds." Jinglin handed the copper pieces to him. "You appreciate him so much you even personally manage his finances." The brush hugged his money pouch and took a big step back. He had been seen through. He realized he was now caught in a dead end. The fact that major spirits had been conferred official titles and could assume the post of a boundary keeper did not mean that the court was benevolent enough to condone humans and spirits overstepping the boundaries. Jinglin tossed the copper pieces into the brush's palm. He was gravely sick and shouldn't be alive now. Had you been simply accompanying him on his last days, the Demarcation Bureau could have closed an eye, but you violated the decree by changing the Register of Fate for your own selfish reason. Even if the Bureau doesn't bring it up, neither of you will be able to escape once the underworld launches an investigation. The brush fell to his knees with a thud and cried out timidly, "How can that be? The only one who broke the decree was me. If the Demarcation Bureau and the underworld look into this matter, the one to be held responsible for this is me, a spirit. What does it have to do with a human?" "What does it have to do with him?" Jinglin repeated after him. Chulun's now snatched the title of the top scholar. Because of this, the original top scholar lost his chance. The Register of Fate's been altered because of your action. Now the fate of these two men will be unpredictable. The brush kowtowed and choked with sobs. "I've realized the error of my ways, but, now that things have come to this point, surely you don't mean to tell me Shenja still has to die. This is how his life should have been. If he succumbs to fate and dies, then everything he's worked hard for will be reduced to nothing. How could I have the heart to—" "You saved Chulun," Tang Ji said, "but some other man's fallen into obscurity. Clearly, humans aren't the only ones who form close bonds with select individuals. Spirits are the same. All these transactions are truly nothing but trouble." Jinglin stood in silence for a moment before saying, "Tell me everything about you and Chulun." Chulun might have had difficulty walking, but his ambitions were lofty. As a boy, he survived on his relatives' leftovers. It was at the age of 12 when his fame started to spread that he grew ashamed of the handouts he received and refused to accept any more alms. He was so destitute and poor he was always short of food. Any book he used, he personally copied them by hand. Even so, there was not a single speck of dust in his humble abode. Chulun would often study instead of eating or sleeping. He had a handicap in his legs, and his health was not great either. He received a recommendation at the age of 19 and went to the capital to take the imperial examination, but he returned empty-handed. After his return, he became even more studious. During this time, he worked as a legal counsel, but often defended poor folks. Because of this, he had to endure the hardships of being frequently exposed to the elements and hunger, and that was how he came to be even more cognizant of the suffering of the people. When he was 22, he entered the capital again to retake the imperial examinations. Once again, his name did not appear on the list of finalists. By this time, Chulun's body was worn out from his old ailment. He was still young, but he was frequently downing medicinal decoctions. Failure had not only demoralized his spirit, but also put him in financial straits. One night, as he was midway through writing, he kept coughing up blood and passed out. When he came to, he was lying in bed. The noodles on the table were still warm, and medicine was simmering on the stove. After this, Chulun would often fall asleep while he was writing. There was a time he flipped through the remaining manuscript by chance, and realized that the pages had been filled up in his handwriting. But even when Chulun racked his brains, he could not remember when he had resumed writing. Gradually, he came to the realization that someone had been accompanying him, and although he could not see him, the entity was always there. One day, Chulun fell asleep with his head propped up. Despite the pounding of the wind and rain against the window at night, he did not wake up as if he was in a deep sleep. A moment later, light footsteps sounded from across the table, and a person leaned over to observe him up close. Chulun kept still. That person gently shifted the paper and dipped the brush in ink before poring over the page with the end of the brush between his teeth. Stealthily, Chulun opened his eyes and saw the top of the person's head facing him, as the latter wrote furiously with sleeves rolled up. Chulun craned his head to look, and the person, hearing the movement, looked up. It was a young man. Both of them looked at each other. The man got such a big shock that his elbow knocked into the inkwell, sending the liquid splashing all over and even onto his face. His yell startled Chulun. At the sight of the ink splashing over again, Chulun leaned back, flipping the chair over and causing him to fall hard onto the ground. A fall would have been no big deal for an ordinary person, but it ended up badly for Chulun. The chair smashed against his chest, causing him to cough out blood. He propped himself up, gasping for breath and breaking out in a cold sweat. His heart palpitated so wildly that the more it thumped, the more panicked he was, and the more the world darkened before his eyes. The man rushed to help him up and held him in his arms. Strangely enough, Chulun felt a slight relief in his chest when the man hugged him. Even his cold sweat eased off some. "It'll be all my fault if you die tonight," the man cried as he hugged Chulun. "What am I to do? I didn't want to hurt anyone." Teardrops came pattering down like rain. There were a few times Chulun wanted to open his mouth to speak, and every time he almost drank a mouthful of those tears. The man cried harder and harder until he was bawling his eyes out, having already forgotten about Chulun, who was still in his arms. Chulun soaked in tears for quite a while. It was only when he almost drowned that the man remembered him. "I see the buildup of ailment in your body." The man touched Chulun's forehead, sniveling. "I'll help you get rid of it." Chulun finally got to speak. "May I ask?" The man huffed out some air, and Chulun felt his body lightened. Even the stabbing pain in his chest was fading. He thought he had encountered a young immortal, but to his surprise, the man said, "It might be spirit aura, but it also contains a bit of the immortal aura of a sage. I blew it all to you. Consider it as my gratitude for your kindness. I can only hope your aspirations are still strong, or—" The man had blown out too much aura. Chulun was now fine, but the man's head drooped down. With a poof, he turned into a brush and fell onto Chulun's chest. Stupefied, Chulun lay on the floor for hours before he rose and picked up the brush, noting that it looked common. "May I ask for your name?" Chulun asked tentatively. There was no response from the motionless brush. Chulun clutched his chest, feeling uneasy. He almost thought he was dreaming. He took the brush to the bed and lay down. Tactfully, he placed it on the pillow and covered it partially with a blanket. After doing so, he stared blankly at it. He thought he was beyond cure. He was starting to display abnormal behavior. While Chulun was holding his head and doubting himself, he heard the brush shrink back into the blanket. Chulun did not move. The brush remained still, too. After a long silence, it sniffed. Excuse me. May I trouble you? I'm suffocating." Chulun stared at the twilight showing in the window before he sat up and very gently lifted a corner of the blanket, respectfully inviting the brush out. "Excuse me. May I trouble you again? My head's in the wrong direction." Chulun promptly turned it around and laid it down properly on the pillow. As Chulun stared at it without blinking, the brush shrank back down. "It scares me a little when you stare at me like that." With that, the brush hid its head under the blanket and refused to let Chulun watch it any further. Chulun tucked in the corner of the blanket for the brush and slept with his back to it. It was nearly dawn, and he was conflicted. How was he supposed to face his parents when he had apparently gone insane from all the studying? Chapter 12. Whether Chulun was insane or not was not important, but the way others saw it, he had already gone over the edge, and it was fairly serious. When he took a break while selling his literary service on the street, he would, with a pleasant countenance, say to his brush, "Thanks for your hard work." Once a passerby craned his neck and asked, "How exactly has the brush worked hard?" "It's been busy for the whole day. Naturally, it hasn't been easy for it." "It's just a tool," the passerby announced. "How would it understand you?" Chulun was about to reply when he stopped and spoke to the brush in his hand. "Don't cry. The ink's dripping out." When he looked up again, everyone was looking at him like he was loony. Chulun also felt that he had gone mad. He left home in the morning with stacks of paper, and returned only when he ran out of ink. thanks to his reputation for being a nutcase, his business improved. After all, it was really rare to have a lunatic who could not only write well, but was also good-looking. Chulun's life grew more comfortable, and he could even afford his medicine. However, he did not know that no matter how hard he tried, his life would still come to an end during his third trip to the capital. According to the underworld's register of fate, Chulun would succumb to an acute illness in the spring of the 12th year of Tianjia. Before he met his end, he would be adrift on a boat, all alone. His body could no longer take in medicine, and it would be 2 days before he finally breathed his last. After death, he would be rolled up in a straw mat and thrown into a mass grave, all of his talents and reputation buried in the soil. On top of that, the Register of Fate listed another talented man with the surname Zuo as the top scholar that year. The more the brush spirit saw Chulun studying through the night, the worse he felt. He wanted to tell Chulun, but time and time again, he swallowed back his words, for Chulun was pleasant like the spring breeze, and the brush spirit secretly wished to stay with him. Seeing that winter had come, Chulun put things into order in preparation for spring. But the luggage he had packed was always stolen and hidden away, and his remaining silver would disappear for no reason. One day, Chulun held up the brush and said, "I'll be heading for the capital by boat in spring. Do you have any plans for yourself?" The brush rolled to the side and transformed into a man sitting cross-legged on the desk. "Why do you have to go to such a faraway place? Stay at home. I'll keep you company. The preliminary round of the imperial examinations around the corner. I must attend." The brush spirit knew it was pointless, but he persisted nonetheless. "You're already renowned in Dongxiang. Why seek those so-called positions and riches?" "Regardless of my fame, I've yet to have the opportunity to serve my country." Chulun moved his legs, which frequently hurt during winter, and covered them with a thin coat. "For over 10 years, I've persevered in my studies despite my hardships. All I wish is to be of use in the future." The brush's mood was waning. Clenching the paper tightly, he leaned in and asked, "Even if you were to die?" Chulun was stunned, and the brush pushed further, trying to scare him. "There are many spirits in the capital, and all of them are major spirits. They all have a particular liking for scholars like you. Are you a major spirit, too?" The brush nodded. "My former master is the sage Yining. Of course, I'm a major spirit." To his dismay, Chulun laughed. The scholar was usually mild in character, and it was rare for him to burst out laughing like this. His laugh seemed to dispel the gloomy clouds over them. "If all of them are like you," Chulun said, "then all the more I want to go and take a look." Sensing Chulun's gentle gaze on him, the brush jerked back as if he had been pricked. With hands behind him, he sulked. "You don't understand. You don't understand. Shenjia, listen to me." "You call me Shenjia." Chulun sat up straight and looked at him. "But how should I address you?" The brush lowered his legs over the desk with his side facing Chulun, refusing to let himself look into Chulun's eyes. "My name's LuYan," he mumbled. Chulun had made up his mind to go. LuYan understood, yet he could not comprehend. He followed Chulun, harping so much even in his brush form that Chulun's ears grew calluses. Even when Chulun dreamed, LuYan would still be standing upright at the side, offering him well-meaning advice. Often, his fellow townsfolk would catch sight of Chulun walking and turning back to grab the brush to talk to it. Though horrified, they had to hand it to him for still remembering to head to the capital for the imperial examination, despite being evidently insane. No matter how LuYan tried to stop him, Chulun would eventually go on to board the boat. "If that's how it's going to be," LuYan said to him on the eve of his departure, "take me with you. If something untoward were to happen to me on the way, you would be adrift on the river for many days." Hearing that, LuYan felt like crying again. "How can you say that? It's as if you know for sure you'd meet your end." With a smile, Chulun lined his books up tidily, then lit the lamp. "I'm afflicted with an old ailment, and lately it's been hard for me to remain at my desk. I can more or less understand what's to come. You've saved me once that night, and repaid any kindness you've owed. You don't have to tag along with me on a difficult path." "You know that," Leon said as he dripped water droplets. "Yet you still want to go ahead. I don't get it." Chulun sighed. "I'll die regardless. I was without kin, but you've cried for me again and again. That's already enough for me." Yan wiped his tears. "I don't want to cry either, but I was born this way. The sage always scolded me too. You know it's impossible, yet you still do it. You remind me of someone who died 5 centuries ago. Whenever I think of him, I always feel like crying." "Who's that?" Leanne sobbed. "Spring water weeps over precipitous rocks. Morning light cloaks green pines in frost." Chulun was between laughter and tears as he handed him a handkerchief. "I'm asking you who. Why are you reciting a poem instead?" "Because he got his title from this poem." Leanne blew his nose with the handkerchief. "I admonished him for many years, although there wasn't anything I could do since it was the sage who didn't like him. But I still feel guilty. You don't know about it, but he once slew spirits and eliminated evils. Weeping Spring was the most powerful sword in the Court of Immortality. Seeing you like this reminds me of him before he met his end." "He must have had his own reasons." Chulun folded the handkerchief. "Although this illness holds me up, I must give it another try. You and I met by chance, and I am indebted to you for your care and concern. I don't know how I should thank you. I'm a spirit. I'm very powerful. I don't need anyone to thank me." Chulun could not help but laugh. "I never knew that spirits are such crybabies." Yan lowered his head and sobbed. "I'm a brush. I have to discharge ink every day, and that means that all I do is cry all day. Now it's impossible for me to stop." The corner of the blanket had been soaked with Yan's tears. Even Chulun's handkerchief was not enough. Yan cried until he started to hiccup. Then he turned over and continued to cry, his hiccups sounding like the little rooster pacing around next door. Chulun felt amused again. Gradually, Yan's weeping receded, and with a poof, he turned back into a brush, thick with the fragrance of ink. Chulun put his handkerchief under the brush. His back was now slightly stooped, and he looked emaciated under the light. "There are benefits to being a spirit," Chulun whispered. "You don't have to be afraid of getting infected when you encounter a chronically ill person like me. But time's too short, and it's getting harder to be content with my lot." The brush wept ink and said nothing more. With Yan in his luggage, Chulun boarded his boat and departed. The weather was chilly in early spring, and Chulun's illness took a sharp turn for the worse. In less than a month, he was unable to get up from bed. He lay there, asking Yan to burn his books for him. "I'm afraid I can't make it to the capital." Chulun smoothed the papers. "Many of the remaining manuscripts have yet to be completed. If I leave them behind, they'd also end up as kindling. Might as well use them today to keep ourselves warm." Yan refused, seeing the number of affidavits. "These cases of Dongxiong have yet to be revindicated," Chulun continued. "My fellow countrymen have entrusted me with these. After my death—" "You won't die," Yan butted in anxiously. "You won't." Chulun laughed bitterly. "It's as clear as day. Don't try to fool me." Yan bundled the papers back into the luggage. Then, with red, raw eyes, he rose to pat Chulun's cheeks. "You're dedicated and talented. You are not going to die here. You must top the scholar list and petition on behalf of the common folk. Just you wait. Although I love to cry, I'm very loyal. I'm not going to let you die." Chulun laughed it off. "Every man has his own destiny. You have me." Yan stood up. "So nothing will happen to you." Yan headed for the underworld. He had Yining's nameplate, so nobody stopped him from embarking or debarking at the Lijian crossing. He used to tag along with Yining, so the various grades of nether guards were scared of acting rashly and offending him. This was because Yining was exceptionally skilled at penning condemnation missives. Not even Lord Linsong had been spared, so how would they be able to last against him? Yan's journey went smoothly without anyone getting into his way. He knew the battle was half won when he finally got his hands on the Register of Fate. He might have become exceptional at fleeing, but he was still the most proficient when it came to words. No matter who wrote it, as long as he had seen it, he could imitate the writing precisely. Yan surreptitiously found Chulun's page, erased the section where he dies of acute illness, and replaced it with lives his life pursuing his ambitions, and meets his end after fulfilling his dreams. After a moment's thought, he searched for the page that originally had top scholar in the 12th year of Tianjia on it, and wiped away the man's top scholar title. Expressing his apologies quietly, Yan looked at this man's name written neatly on the page, Zuo Qingzhou. He did not know who Zuo Qingzhou was, but he understood that the deletion would cause the man to miss the top scholar title this year. But then, he read the man's life, which clearly stated that said person would be successful in his official post, eliminating corruption and cleaning up the imperial court, until the end of his life at 70. Reassured, he returned the Register of Fate, without anyone noticing, and left with peace of mind. Then he'd gradually recover, make it to the examination, and fulfill his dreams. Interrupting Yan, Tang Ji poured cold liquor from the stall and tasted it. Nothing's that simple. Although I have no idea what that Register of Fate is, I can still guess that a change of Chulun's fate means that someone else will have to pay for it with his life. I wonder who that unlucky scapegoat is. No, it doesn't, Yan blurted in a panic. I've checked the register. I'm sure that nobody will die because of this. Life is unpredictable. Tang Ji smiled derisively. Who cares about other people when you can get your wish fulfilled? There was no reason for Shenzhe's illness, Yan argued. Who's he paying for with his life, then? This kind of arrangement was wrong to begin with. A certain old man I know always talks about celestial laws, which means everything planned in the Register of Fate must have been orchestrated by someone, Tang Ji said. Every man has his own destiny. Why fight it? Yan snapped his head up and looked at Jinglin, regardless of his tears. My lord, you're not resigned to your fate, are you? How could I accept this kind of destiny? Don't tell me he was given life merely to go through his life ill and full of regrets. I can't accept this. Tang Ji tapped on the rim of the cup. The word love is all but a mess of rotten debts. Yan kowtowed. I'll pay with my life. All I ask is... A violent gust rose and sent Jinglin's sleeves fluttering. Yan's words dispersed in the wind, even before his voice had died down. Tang Ji looked up and saw something approaching from the east. He downed the cold drink and walked towards Jinglin. I smell... Tang Ji frowned. A brush? That's the smell of books, Jinglin corrected. They saw a creature traversing the sky from the east, a white fox whose fur exuded the scent of books. Holding a man in his mouth, the fox flitted towards Huashang's inn. Behind him in close pursuit was someone with a whip in hand. Another fox spirit bringing ruin upon a man through sexual seduction. Not only have you had an affair with a human, you've caused him to lose his life. Even in death you won't let him go, he berated. The fox crashed to the ground. Tang Ji saw that his tail was broken in half, and he was bloodied all over. Even more shockingly, the man he was carrying was so disfigured he no longer looked human. Whining, the fox refused to let go and held on to the man as he limped into the inn. The person with the whip made to give chase when he heard Huashang snort. Wu Ying, Lady Shengyue herself watches over these lands. Who do you think you are, chasing him all the way here? Wu Ying cracked his whip. When spirits harm humans, I must enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. Huashang rapped on the window with her polished nails and spat. What the heck are you even? A deity? A ghost? Who gave you the right to do anything? Wu Ying was furious. Tang Ji, on the other hand, folded his arms and watched the show. It was his first time watching a commotion someone else stirred up. But then, Jinglin spoke. You lied to me. Yan held his head and said nothing. Jinglin turned back to him. You secretly changed the fate of 2 men. You made another stand in for Chulun. All you've said are half-lies and half-truths. You didn't do it for the sake of loyalty, but for love. You knew someone would die, but you were still bent on getting your way." Yan shook like a leaf, and sobs tumbled out of his throat. "What else could I have done? I... Jinglin could not hear Yan's voice in the wind. All he could hear was the bell, which had originally been on Chulun, splitting into two and ringing incessantly from the fox spirit's location. The suffering of illness had become entwined with another suffering. Right at this time, the mournful cries of the fox in the inn reverberated through the sky. A gale tore its way from south to north, snapping the lantern poles and extinguishing all light in the capital. Tang Ji raised a hand against the wind and held Jinglin tightly. "What's happening?" "Someone's died," Jinglin answered. Tang Ji held Jinglin to his side amidst the billows of spirit aura. Benches and tables of the stall broke, and the street was suddenly emptied, leaving only the wind raging on so relentlessly it blew Jinglin back. Tang Ji grabbed him around his waist and held him against his chest, shielding him against the wind like a safe harbor amidst the violent wind. Pressed against his chest, Jinglin could hear his heartbeat, and with Tang Ji's breath surrounding him, all he could smell was the carp. Meanwhile, the wind blew Yan up against a wall. He did not get blown away, only because he shapeshifted into a brush and dropped into a gap. The mournful cries of the fox gradually tapered off into broken sniffles. Jinglin could tell from the rapid ringing of the bell that it was urging them on, but there was nothing he could do at the moment. Caught off guard, Wu Ying toppled over from the force of the gale. The cries unexpectedly sent a wave of sorrow crashing over him. The fox in the inn limped forward, turned into a tall man covered in human blood, and kowtowed repeatedly to Hua Shang. With a heavy expression, Hua Shang grabbed hold of his hands and sat down to whisper to him, "Silly child, he's dead." Face splattered with blood, the fox rasped, struggling to speak, but all that gushed out was blood. Hua Shan pointed to the body in his arms and commanded, "Take the man away." The little foxes all came, but the fox held on tightly to the man, refusing to let go. His chest was aching. He knelt on the ground, bowing over with the man in his embrace, the pain so agonizing he nearly puked out his heart. "Miss Hua," the fox's voice was hoarse, "save him. He's long stopped breathing. Let go now." Hua Shang, not bearing to see him like this, was gentle with him. Disregarding the blood on his face, she cupped his cheeks and repeated firmly, "Qian Yu, he's dead." The bell chimed, and the city reverberated with its toll. Jinglin felt a jolt deep within himself. He clung onto Tang Ji's clothes, feeling as if he was being channeled elsewhere. This emotion. Jinglin could not finish as the past flashed through his mind. In that instant, it seemed as if the sky and earth were turned upside down, and he was plunging into a sea of clouds. Everything he saw was an illusion, and every sound he heard was a hallucination. Chulun and Yan's memories shattered into luminous light. As Jinglin sank into darkness, he saw Tang Ji recede into the distance, until he was all but gone. A raindrop plopped onto his nose. Jinglin woke with a start, feeling a wave of dizziness hit him. This was how he knew the bell had stolen his spiritual energy again. Fighting back the nausea, he found himself in a narrow corner. He could not help but reach forward, but it was not a hand he extended, but a furry paw. Stunned, his ears twitched. He shook off the water droplets, climbed out of the nook, and looked into a puddle to see that he had turned into a snow-white fox. Jinglin shook his head in alarm and stamped his paws, unable to keep his composure. He had done everything one could think of, but he had never been a fox. Swinging his head made him realize there was something weighing down his tail. He leveled it for a look. To his surprise, it was the elusive bell. Jinglin examined his surroundings and walked along the rocks to reach a long, roofed walkway. This was a large residence, even bigger than the last rental that he had shared with Tang Ji. Elegant setups could be seen everywhere. It seemed to be midsummer. As Jinglin shook off the water droplets on his fur, he glanced at both sides. He did not know why, but something was urging him on to go along the walkway into the library surrounded by flower beds. The library exuded the scent of books. Lured by the fragrance, Jinglin trod into it, not noticing that he had left paw prints on the white rug. He jumped onto the bookshelf and, as if recognizing the words, dug out the book he wanted with his mouth and nudged it onto the carpet to read. Jinglin frowned. Seeing as it was a script for a play, he wanted to shut the book. To his dismay, his body remained unmoved no matter how hard he wanted it. He was trapped in this body, forced to play the role of another soul. The fox read with relish, even rolling around on the carpet when things got interesting. Jinglin did not want to laugh, but he had to perform the act of rolling around, so he rolled awkwardly for a bit, thinking he looked like a fool. In his distress, he heard someone coming up the stairs and changing his shoes before the door. Jinglin swiftly squeezed into a pile of books and exposed a tiny part of his ears to eavesdrop. He heard the person quietly order his attendants to leave before washing his hands clean and entering. Jinglin lay low to the ground and lowered his head to conceal himself. It must have been a man. A breeze rose beside his robe as he stepped past the pile of books. As he searched the bookshelf for books, he saw the paw prints. Searching with his back turned, he spoke. "You sneaky crook. Have you finished reading the previous book you stole?" Jinglin poked his head out. Seeing as the man had yet to turn around, he changed directions with light steps, wanting to make his escape. Unexpectedly, the moment Jinglin moved, the bell on his tail rang. Before he could take a step, the man caught and lifted him by the scruff. "I don't see you eating the food I left for you." The man rubbed the furry ears. "Are you only here to steal books?" Jinglin's spine tingled as the man stroked him. He did not want this, but his tail kept wagging, and his front paws trod the air in pleasure. He rubbed himself against the man's palm to ingratiate himself with him. The man turned him around and embraced him. Jinglin looked up at the man and nearly lost his tail in shock. The fair-complexioned Tang Ji had a smile in his eyes as he sandwiched Jinglin under an arm and lifted his robe to climb the steps. The wooden steps led to a narrow space at the top which was full of books. Instead of lighting a candle, Tang Ji took out a luminous gem the size of his palm from his sleeve. Set down onto the ground, Jinglin stepped upon an even softer rug. He lay down beside the gem to watch Tang Ji tidy the books. The scent saturating the room intoxicated him. Jinglin had nothing to do, and so he sized this Tang Ji up. Tang Ji seemed to be aware of his gaze. "You stole the books and refused to admit your mistake," he said without turning his head. "So I'm punishing you to face the wall and reflect on your mistakes. So why are you looking at me?" The fox gave a defiant bark and openly inspected his surroundings. He trod behind Tang Ji and leapt onto his shoulder. Clinging onto Tang Ji's clothes, he poked out his head to read the book opened in his lap. Tang Ji stroked his neck, making him feel so good he tumbled down from Tang Ji's shoulder into his arms. The narrow space was still and quiet. The gem thawed the usual aggression in Tang Ji's face into a kind of softness. Jinglin lay on his lap, realizing only now that Tang Ji could also look this gentle. That was when he saw himself reach a paw out. He placed his paw gently below Tang Ji's chest and slid it about as if it were a finger. This damn fox. Jinglin immediately wanted to retract his paw, but his body did not obey. He watched as the paw turned into fingers. Long arms and legs gradually revealed themselves, and silver hair cascaded over his body like a waterfall. He could see his own face in Tang Ji's eyes, showing an expression he had never shown before. What was the most terrifying thing in this world? Jinglin had not known, but now he knew. It was to see oneself becoming another person. Like tearing down all his previous masks, baring himself stark naked to do stuff he had never done. He was seducing Tang Ji. His fingers slid underneath Tang Ji's clothes and veered around his chest towards the back of his waist. Jinglin did not know why he was sweating. He suspected it was one of the fox's tactics, yet he could feel the texture of those muscles under his palm. Alarmed, Jinglin wanted to avert his gaze, but there was nothing he could do. He could only stare at Tang Ji, gradually drawing closer to him. Nudging the gem aside with his toe, the silver-haired fox curiously leaned in close to Tang Ji and blew a gentle puff of air. A thud rang out as Tang Ji was pressed up against the bookshelf. The book on his lap crumpled under Jinglin's weight. Tang Ji looked at Jinglin's rosy cheeks as the latter's fingers scraped gently against his back. Damn this to hell. Tang Ji wanted to grab hold of Jinglin's chin, but he discovered he could not move. He had become another man, yet he was obviously being intimate with Jinglin. Even his temperature and the way he felt to the touch were the same. This was the bell's fault. Both of them silently swore in unison. Jinglin was so close to him that he could not be any closer. Not just face to face, but even legs to waist. He sat on Tang Ji's lap, still eyeing him as if his curiosity had not diminished in the slightest. Tang Ji felt his throat throb as Jinglin lifted himself, almost thinking Jinglin was going to kiss him, but Jinglin did not. Instead, with his lidded eyes subdued and reserved, he took a nip at Tang Ji's nose. For a fleeting moment, Tang Ji could not tell whether he should feel relief or disappointment. He returned Jinglin's embrace and wrapped his arms around Jinglin, kissing him on the lips. The hot, wet kiss took place in a narrow, dim corner, which only served to intensify it. Holding Jinglin up, Tang Ji lifted him from the bookshelf and kissed him hard. They must have done this countless times before, which was why they were moving with such ease and familiarity. Even their body odor was familiar to one another. Jinglin wanted to keep his eyes open, but the dumb fox closed them instead. Immersed in the darkness, he could sense everything even more distinctly. He touched Tang Ji without any reservation. He could sense Tang Ji brushing apart the hair over his shoulders. Then his outer garment slid to the floor. Jinglin did not even have the time to express his shock. He was like satin being folded over however the man wanted. He simmered with rage. The bell was hanging right there in his hair, but all he could do was to gasp for breath. This was no substitution. These were the two of them, for the spots that they touched all felt undeniably familiar. Jinglin heard Tang Ji breathe out the name Qian Yu as his warm mouth took in Jinglin's ear. Jinglin could not help but lift his arm to hide his face, wanting to block away this cursed shame. The bell swung. Jinglin seemed to be caught in a tug-of-war with his body. Tang Ji turned him over and shoved him against the bookshelf. Jinglin tightened his grip on the bookshelf, but there was no spot he could grasp on to maintain his footing. Jinglin raised his head, and Tang Ji kissed him from behind. Jinglin took all his grit in the past and put it all into this very moment. He abruptly turned his head away and felt Tang Ji's scorching heat pressed up against him. Kisses rained down on his nape. Jinglin's eyes were icy. Like a child learning to walk, he controlled his body and stiffly pulled his fingers away from its original action towards the other side. Behind him, Tang Ji suddenly weighed down on him. Jinglin heard the profanity in his mouth, restrained yet explosive. This was none other than Tang Ji, who was similarly pulling himself back. One of Jinglin's hands had already left the bookshelf. While he was panting, Tang Ji stripped away his inner garment, exposing his collarbone and shoulders. Tang Ji pinned him down, and Jinglin swiftly grabbed the bell between his hair. "Zuo Qingzhou," Jinglin shouted hoarsely. "It's Zuo Qingzhou. The man who died is Zuo Qingzhou. I now know what his relationship with the fox is. You can stop it now." The bell disappeared from his palm with a poof. Jinglin slackened against the bookshelf. Behind him, Tang Ji, already poised for action, braced himself and lowered his head to pant. Both of them felt as if they had a close brush with death. Just a little more, and... Tang Ji struggled to avoid Jinglin's body. This was his first and only time to cut such a sorry figure. It was even his first time to let such an unfamiliar impulse dictate his actions. He stared darkly at Jinglin's bare nape, feeling as if Zuo Qingzhou still existed within him. He was burning to continue to do what he did not know and had never experienced. Tangji hastily pulled back his clothes and wrapped Jinglin up, refusing to let him show even a tiny bit of his skin. "Let it die," Tangji swore. Jinglin brushed aside his hair and turned his head. Immediately, he was pushed to face the other way by Tangji. Jinglin's lips were slightly hurting from the kiss, so he knew he did not look appropriate. He brushed his thumb across the corner of his lips and rose to his feet. "It wanted to tell us," Jinglin said calmly, "that Qianyu and Zuo Qingzhou had this kind of relationship, a fox spirit forming an intimate bond with a human. But Zuo Qingzhou's dead." "Zuo Qingzhou," Tangji stepped away from him, "sounds so familiar." The brush spirit, LuZa, revised the Register of Fate, and Chulun became the top scholar. Because of this, Zuo Qingzhou lost his life. Tangji fastened the clasp on his clothes. "You mean the man who died in place of Chulun was Zuo Qingzhou?" Jinglin tapped his forehead on the bookshelf and said in a heavy voice, "It wouldn't be that simple. As they said, every cause has its effect, and every effect has its cause. We first need to figure out what the fox's suffering is, and how Zuo Qingzhou died." With his back to Jinglin, Tangji picked up the gem on the rug. That tantalizing, unique scent had yet to dissipate from the space. Tangji did not know what it was, but he had no desire to ask. "Before figuring that out, we need to get out of here first," Tangji said as he passed Jinglin the belt that he had pulled off. Jinglin took it, and a delicate, sobering atmosphere promptly descended upon them. Jinglin fastened his belt. Fortunately, Zuo Qingzhou did not use that much force, so his clothes were still intact. Tangji turned around only after Jinglin secured his flowing silver hair behind his head. The collar had been unable to cover Jinglin's neck, and spots that had been sucked red looked all the more striking in the darkness. Good thing the gem was not bright enough, allowing Tangji to snap back to his senses. Meanwhile, Jinglin sat back on the rug. All the desires earlier had been sealed away under firm ice, suppressed until there was no sight of them. This place is like Dongjun's illusion. It's an illusory scene of another person that the bell has replicated. It led us here to point out that Zuo Qingzhou is Qianyu's suffering. Jinglin paused for a moment before continuing. LuZa changed the Register of Fate out of his own selfish interests. What was Zuo Qingzhou's original fate? The top scholar. Tangji leaned against the bookshelf. Zuo Qingzhou was supposed to be the top scholar this year. Chulun and Zuo Qingzhou were both at the site of the imperial examination. Could they have been acquainted somehow? That was hard to say. Jinglin sensed a big change in the way the bell was acting. It was more urgent than the previous 2 times. But why? Was it because these matters could not be delayed any longer, or was something making it impatient? But what had these matters got to do with him? What was worth forcing them to experience this in the flesh? LuZa saw Zuo Qingzhou's fate, Jinglin pondered. This man wasn't someone who would have died prematurely. He was not only blessed with longevity, but also born under a lucky star, and would have had a good life with a successful official career. There has to be a reason for his death. LuZa specifically mentioned Zuo Qingzhou, so it's probably not that simple. Tangji picked up Zuo Qingzhou's book and flipped a few pages. Zuo Qingzhou went for the imperial examination at the same time as Chulun, so LuZa should have seen him. Since he thinks so much about Chulun's top scholar title, he must have checked out Zuo Qingzhou to see who he was. Perhaps. Tangji's voice came to an abrupt stop. There were a few strands of hair sandwiched between the pages of this book. Likely, these were Jinglin's hairs that had inadvertently come off when Tangji had been passionately caressing him earlier. Following his earlier impulse, Tangji felt a rush of heat shooting down his abdomen. He immediately closed the book and bent a leg. Yan was afraid there was a change to the Register of Fate, so he made the first move and killed Zuo Qingzhou. Clueless as to what Tang Ji was thinking, Jinglin said, Yan might have lied, but he wouldn't kill. You hadn't seen him in 5 centuries. How can you be sure he wouldn't? Tang Ji scoffed. He had no sympathy for the brush. I don't trust him, but I trust Yi Ning. Jinglin's wrist was apparent as he gathered his sleeves under the dim light, which accentuated the smoothness of his silhouette. Yi Ning and Zui Shan are on good terms with each other. Both of them detest evil to the point of hatred. Many times they lamented about not making each other's acquaintances earlier. Yi Ning is the kind of person who's harsh on everyone, but even more so on himself. He might have cast Yan down to the human realm, but that does not mean that he'd totally turn his back on him. If Yan killed a man, he'd definitely not stand by and do nothing. Then, what untruth has Yan said? Tang Ji asked. You said he was lying. He was contradictory in his account of Chulun. Jinglin raised his eyes to look at Tang Ji. What are you doing so far away? Just in case, Tang Ji said. If the bell comes again, would you be able to make a run for it if I'm too close to you? It's so big in here. Jinglin tilted his head slightly, and the gem cast a soft glow over his face. It's already made its point clear. It won't do that again. And what is that? Tang Ji covered his lap with the book. Eating someone? I don't know. Have you ever done that with someone? Tang Ji asked. Yan's desire to save Chulun is real, but he's insistent that Chulun get the title of the top scholar. There must be more to it. That means you've done it before. Tang Ji cut him off. With whom? If I was one who taught you to probe until you get to the bottom of things, Jinglin said, then throw that all away right now. It's not a good habit to have. Tang Ji looked at him for a moment. You couldn't have forgotten, could you? Don't tell me you want to help me remember. Tang Ji paused for words, and Jinglin continued. It's obvious that the key is top scholar. It's important to Chulun and to Zuo Qingzhou. The top scholar title is the key to the changes in both men's fates. We need to know what happened on the days of the examination. But it obviously has no intention of letting you and me out. Tang Ji flicked the gem. I'm still Zuo Qingzhou. What did the bell mean by this? It could not possibly want them to play along with the actions of Qian Yu and Zuo Qingzhou in order to continue, could it? They glanced at each other, then simultaneously averted their gazes. The delicate atmosphere lingered in the air. It was so stifling, Tang Ji broke out in a sweat. As soon as he shifted his body, the book that his shoulder had been pressing against dropped. Tang Ji realized that this book was different from the others, having been compiled by Zuo Qingzhou himself. He flipped through the pages. The old cases of Dongxiang. Tang Ji turned the book around and pushed it towards Jinglin. Chulun is from Dongxiang. Didn't the brush mention that Chulun was looking into some old cases of Dongxiang too? Following Tang Ji's fingers, Jinglin skimmed over the page. Although there were many things he did not remember, he was still very observant about everything that had happened recently, right down to the smallest details. When his eyes fell upon a certain part, his heart gave a skip. Dongxiang is thousands of miles away from Shitu. What cases would require the presence of the Inspector General of Shitu? Jinglin paused, his gaze darkening during his silence. The route from east to west is arduous. Shijiang and the capital lie between them. If you take a detour down south, there would be many levels of waterway checkpoints to go through. It's both energy and time-consuming. The only suitable route would be to take a detour from the north. Tang Ji did not miss a beat. The connection between Dongxiang and Shitu lies in the mountain ranges in the north they must pass through. Jinglin turned over the page and saw Zuo Qingzhou's detailed list of the names of all those involved in the case. All of them were missing cases of women and children. Since the first year of Tianjia, more than 100 people have gone missing in Dongxiang alone. The constables of the Dongxiang Yemen were up to their ears in investigations, but so far, none of the missing had been found. The most peculiar was Zuo Qingzhou's single-lined annotation in the footnotes. Human traffickers run rampant all over. I've resided in the capital for many years, and not once have I ever caught wind of it. That's strange. Tangji leaned over next to Jinglin. Isn't the capital of the mortals the residence of the emperor? By all rationale, a major human trafficking case that had occurred in all the various places should have been reported to the capital's central administration, shouldn't it? As the saying goes, the mountains are high, and the emperor is far away. Remote locations are beyond the reach of the central administration, so it's not impossible to stem the flow of information, Jinglin said. However, if you're talking about sweeping it under the rug, that's impossible. The local yeoman would report it to their higher-ups, who would then send it to the capital. There must be someone in the capital who's intentionally obstructing the course of justice, and someone who can put the clamps on such a major case must be an influential man in a high-ranking position, making it hard for the common man to offend him. Tangji turned back a few pages. Zuo Qingzhou must have investigated these cases in detail, having even made a special trip to Shitu. Tangji's case moved down. He saw an acquaintance in the list of Dongxiang's personnel transfers to the other localities. Gushen. Both of them glanced at each other. Gushen was transferred from Dongxiang to Shitu, Jinglin said. He was originally pursuing these cases. Gushen knew Donglin. Then what about Zuo Qingzhou and Chulun? Tangji connected the books to form a line. Donglin was constantly on the move for this, as were Gushen, Zuo Qingzhou, and Chulun. The city in the mountains has been destroyed, but these cases remain unresolved because most of the missing people are dead. In that case, the lead's been cut off. No. Jinglin pressed his fingertip on the last book. It hasn't. Because the bell's still in pursuit, and the 8 sufferings have yet to conclude. All these indicate that these cases are still ongoing, or perhaps even happening right now. Humans and spirits are both involved in this, Tangji warned. Don't tell me we'll still have to deal with the Demarcation Bureau. That may be the case. Jinglin raised his head, revealing his exquisite neck as he leaned slightly towards Tangji. Spirits are involved, but why hasn't the Bureau acted yet? Tangji paused for a moment, then burst out laughing. Could it be that deities are involved too? Jinglin did not continue this thread of conversation. His face turned pale as though he had thought of something. Pursing his lips, he suddenly bent over and covered his mouth as he broke out in a coughing fit. Tangji extracted a handkerchief to cover his mouth, wrapping his arms around Jinglin as the latter's body shook from the intensity of the coughs, hiding the blood-stained portion of the handkerchief from view. The top scholar. Jinglin suddenly grabbed Tangji's hand. The top scholar. Chulun and Zuo Qingzhou both wanted to top the examination to win the title of the top scholar, because the top scholars have always been in the ministry's good books. After spending several years at the Hanlin Imperial Academy, they can join the central administration for an official post. By then, they'd have authority. Once they're officially a part of the ministry, all the power and influence in the world will be within reach. They're not only investigating these cases, but they also want to redress the injustices. Jinglin inspected the bookshelf. The bell arranged for us to come here because this place is important. All records of Zuo Qingzhou's investigation are here. For him to take this up with others, he must have found the crux of the matter. Lu Yan said that his entry in the Register of Fate indicated that he'd be successful in his official post. That's right. These words formed the basis of who Zuo Qingzhou was supposed to be. His top scholar title was erased, but that didn't mean he had to die. With his talent and knowledge, he could have taken the imperial examination in the coming years, and his destiny would have prevailed, but he's dead because he was discovered. The top scholar title was his protection. The person he was investigating discovered him. Going by his original fate, the other party would have been indisposed to silence him because the top scholar would have had the eyes of the court on him, Tangji said in a heavy voice. But the brush spirit changed his fate. Then, what about Chulun? Jinglin turned to the last page. Chulun and Zuo Qingzhou were acquainted with each other. However, these two men had lived far apart from each other, and there was a disparity in their status. How would they have gotten to know each other? Chulun was a gifted scholar from Dongxiang, but he was poor and he still relied on farming to scratch out a meager existence, even while selling his literary services. He had come to be aware of these cases only because his circumstances had forced him to work as a legal counsel. On the other hand, Zuo Qingzhou was born to a well-off family in the capital. His manor was equipped with a library for his large collection. Evidently, someone of his father's generation was an official in the imperial court, albeit not a high-ranking one. Given the quiet and secluded courtyard setup, they were most likely a family of scholars. How did these two come to know each other? Zuo Qingzhou addressed Chulun by his courtesy name Shenji. So they not only knew each other, but also were on familiar terms, Tang Ji said. If they were on familiar terms, Jinglin wondered, how could Lo Yan not recognize Zuo Qingzhou if he's been with Chulun for a year? Perhaps there was no written correspondence between them this year. Tang Ji rose to his feet and began to search according to Zuo Qingzhou's archival order. Based on what you have said, they're both investigating these cases that implicate high-ranking officials in the capital. If someone had set their eyes on them, then breaking off communication would have been a sound strategy. In that case, the best opportunity would have been the day of the imperial examination, when scholars from all over would assemble in the capital. Chulun's arrival wouldn't have caused someone to launch a probe into it. It would have been just the time for fellow students and countrymen to socialize with one another. Sitting at the same table wouldn't have aroused suspicion. From how I see it, Tang Ji turned aside and said regretfully, someone had suspected Chulun. The brush said he would have died of sickness all alone on a boat. If he were to die of sickness, the brush only had to give him a few mouthfuls of spiritual energy, and he'd be able to live a few more days. But the brush felt the need to go to the underworld. He wasn't supposed to die of illness, Jinglin concluded. The mysterious party very likely had something to do with the original death of Chulun recorded in the Register of Fate. Lu Yan was very well aware of this, which was why he had risked condemnation to modify the register. Interesting. Tang Ji was intrigued. Why do I find the scheming of the mastermind behind this oh so familiar? It's like going through it all over again, Jinglin said softly. Nothing. Tang Ji looked through the bookshelf in chronological order and found a small box at the top of the fourth frame. He took it down, turned it over in his palms, and noticed a small iron lock on it. Tilting his ear towards the box, he gave it a slight shake and wondered, this place is full of documents and case files. Why is there a box? Can you tell what's inside? Jinglin asked. Papers. He put a pile of paper inside. It's letters, Jinglin said with absolute certainty. Only letters would require him to hide them away like this. Tang Ji sat back down. He used 2 fingers to break the small iron lock and opened the box. Just as Jinglin had expected, letters were in the box, neatly organized from the latest to the oldest, with detailed annotations of the date and time. Jinglin picked up the top bundle of letters and saw the word Xijing. Zuo Qingzhou, Jinglin said, courtesy name Xijing. Shenji. Tang Ji looked at the end of the page. This is a letter from Chulun. The last letter Chulun sent to Zuo Qingzhou from Dongxiang in the 10th year of Tianjia. Xijing, many thanks for your concern. I have found employment and no longer worry about livelihood. When I headed south along the river in spring, I heard of this case wherever I passed. You speak of the truth. This case has been dragging on for many years and implicates over 100 people, and there are spies everywhere from east to west. As much as the result of our in-depth investigation is appalling, we must not act impetuously. With your guidance, I have headed south and met with Gu Shen. He is well aware of the intricacies of this case, and is willing to follow the trail of the traffickers. He has since requested a transfer to Shitu to continue his investigations in the north. After years of conniving by the imperial court, This case has now ballooned into a monstrous beast. It is hard to crack down on this deeply entrenched atrocity in the Middle Realm. After contemplation, I hope you will give His Excellency Liu's matter further consideration. This case is an arduous undertaking. It cannot be eradicated without the various powers joining forces. I know your mind is made up, but I would still advise you to take a slow approach. The imperial court is full of cunning characters, and there are too many things hinging on this. Not only are our lives at stake, but also those of our families and clans. If we make one wrong move, we will lose the entire game. According to Chulun's letter, Zuo Qingqiu had wanted to make a move 2 years ago, Tang Ji said. 2 years ago, both of them were mere commoners. Even with connections in the imperial court, Zuo Qingqiu would not have been able to shake up the mastermind. Where did he get the guts to take action and strike out at them? Not quite take action. At most, to apply some pressure. Jinglin folded back the letter and smoothed it carefully between his fingers. His mind raced. Although Chulun's letter did not mention it outright, we can tell that they'd gotten to the crux of the matter. Even though they had yet to identify the mastermind, they were getting close. That's why they broke off communications with each other. Zuo Qingqiu must have realized he was being watched, which was why he didn't reply. They must have had other communication channels that allowed them to exchange information, Tang Ji said. What makes you think so? Chulun went for the imperial examination despite his sickness. Even the brush could not dissuade him. Do you still remember what the brush said Chulun said the night before his departure? Tang Ji asked. He said, "You know it's impossible, yet you still do it." This shows that Chulun was aware that he would have most likely died on the way to the capital. If he could have come to that realization, then he must have gotten some reliable news. He risked his life to come, perhaps because the communication channel was no longer available, and he had to make a special trip down to inform Zuo Qingqiu of some crucial information. We can see from the timing that Chulun had been in the capital for several days when Zuo Qingqiu died. The fact that they hadn't been able to meet those few days shows that the matter had reached the point of urgency. The mastermind had already discovered the connection between them. The mastermind decided to make a move at this precise moment, Jinglin contemplated. They must have done something to enrage the mastermind during the preliminary round of imperial examinations. That's why the mastermind could wait no longer and had to kill Zuo Qingqiu. In that case, we must first know how Zuo Qingqiu died. What did the man with the whip say? He said the fox spirit killed Zuo Qingqiu. The fact that Zuo Qingqiu is Qian Yu's suffering is enough to show Qian Yu's deep love for Zuo Qingqiu. From what we saw, they're not only in love, but also very intimate with each other. They've probably promised themselves to each other. Jinglin thought back to Qian Yu's heart-wrenching wails and reasserted, it wouldn't have been him. Why not? Tang Ji suddenly drew a slash with his finger before Jinglin's neck. Killing intent exists even between you and me. Why not between them? What trickery has love utilized that even a fox spirit succumbed to it? Is it really that powerful? I don't believe this absurdity. If you ever get the opportunity, give it a try, Jinglin answered. You and I both. I doubt you understand it either. Isn't this just perfect? How do you know I don't? If you did, you wouldn't have blushed at a mere touch. Although you had Qian Yu as cover, your inexperience was obvious. Tang Ji reflected on it. You've never done this with anyone before at all. You say that like you're some expert. Jinglin tapped the surface of the letter lightly, a very subtle move, but it clearly revealed his displeasure. But look at it this way. Tang Ji retracted his hand. I have no idea why Qian Yu wouldn't have killed Zuo Qingqiu either. Because in my opinion, if I were him, as soon as you get friendly with someone else, you can be sure that I'll eat you up. Jinglin gave a small sigh. Qian Yu wouldn't have eaten Zuo Qingqiu. If you like someone, you should devour him. Otherwise, he'll get snatched. The one you love, Jinglin said, must be one of the most competent in the 3 realms. Thank you for the compliment. If I ever meet the one, I'll pass along your words. Seeing Jinglin close the box, Tang Ji asked. Not reading any more? Jinglin rose to his feet with the box. I'm going to the courtyard for a look. Zuo Qingzhou must have left some clues. Haven't you noticed? It's as if the time here has never changed. When Jinglin descended the stairs, he realized Cangji was right. It had been drizzling when he woke up near noon. They had since been in this narrow space for several hours, but the sky outside was the same. The bell's different this time. When it made use of human dreams, you and I could only watch and not experience it firsthand. We could still walk away if we sensed something wrong. But now, not only is it hard to leave, our consciousness is also trapped in someone else's body. Unable to mobilize his spiritual energy, Cangji asked, "What else does it want to tell us?" Jinglin had no idea either. They walked through the walkway and went around the courtyard. The pitter-patter of raindrops continued endlessly, but the sky never turned dark. They were on their third lap around the courtyard when Cangji sensed something off. When we passed by this place, I plucked the flowering crab-apple. Cangji's eyes focused on the spot. But just one lap later, it's grown back on its own. Jinglin was about to speak when Cangji took a few steps away from him and asked, "Why have you shown your ears?" Taken aback, Jinglin discovered that his own furry ears had indeed revealed themselves. He frowned. Before he could finish his words, he saw Cangji growing bigger, while everything around him grew longer. As Jinglin was having second thoughts, his tail reappeared with a poof, and he turned back into a fox. The box in his hand tumbled to the ground, and before him, Cangji abruptly vanished. Just as he was filled with alarm, he blacked out. A raindrop plopped onto his nose. For the second time, Jinglin woke up, still as dizzy as before. He shook his furry ears, made his way to the walkway, and headed for the library. The smell of books permeated the air. Jinglin looked on coldly as he rolled over with laughter reading the play. Footsteps heading up the stairs of the library rang out. Cangji's lines were exactly the same as the last time. He picked him up and tousled his fur again. Unable to control himself, Jinglin stretched out his paws in pleasure. At the same time, he was inwardly struggling with himself. He realized to his shock that his consciousness had been chained with shackles so heavy that he could not regain control of his body. Cangji had already picked him up to ascend the stairs. Jinglin felt his heart leap to his throat. The same scene was about to take place. What exactly did the bell want to tell them? Jinglin broke out in a cold sweat as he quickly searched for an answer. Zuo Qingzhou? What else had Zuo Qingzhou hidden during this time that he had not noticed? Or did he and Cangji have to do what Zuo Qingzhou and Qianyu had done to the very end? Once again, Jinglin gently scratched Cangji on the back. The repeated kiss came again. This time, Jinglin could even feel the sturdiness of the thighs. Cangji was lithe yet powerfully built, and the scorching heat seeping through his clothes made Jinglin shudder. Zuo Qingzhou's. Pinned against the bookshelf, Jinglin was breathing raggedly. Cangji was going to shatter his composure with his touch. Jinglin felt his consciousness clouding over as if he had caught a cold. For a moment, he could not tell whether he was Qianyu or himself. Cangji pressed against him from behind, gripping his arm so hard that it hurt. His kisses were as pressing as the times he was devouring his meals. Jinglin even broke out in a sweat during his intermittent gasps for breath. So hot. No, not hot. It was Zuo Qingzhou's. Zuo Qingzhou's what? Zuo Qingzhou had laid out all his cards here. He was already on the trail of the mastermind. For what reasons would he have died? For what reasons? Jinglin felt a coolness on his shoulders. Meanwhile, his nape tingled with waves of numbness from the stimulation. He could sense where Cangji's thighs were pushing up against. Jinglin was sweating profusely, as was Cangji, who was sweating even more than him. His sweat slid down his face and dripped onto the pit of Jinglin's neck. So searing was it that Jinglin sucked in a breath. Zuo, young master! There was a sudden shout from an attendant at the bottom of the stairs. It was as if Jinglin was jolted awake from a dream. Cangji stopped his actions. Their bodies and breath were intertwined, and the drops of sweat melting between their skins were viscous and sensual. Zuo Qingzhou bent his head to nudge against Qian Yu's cheek. They exchanged a wet, passionate kiss. Then, Tang Ji pulled up Jinglin's clothes and asked, "What's the matter?" Since there had been a precedent before, Jinglin could not relax out of fear that the bell would come at it again. Fortunately, the bell did not ring or appear. "His Excellency Liu's here," the attendant announced. "He's waiting in the front hall." Tang Ji arranged his clothes, while Jinglin leaned against the bookshelf. Both men seemed loath to part, but the attendant butted in just in time. "Your father's urging you on." Jinglin heaved a sigh of relief, but before it all came out, he was picked up in a hug, which secretly horrified him. Had Zuo Qingzhou and Qian Yu not finished yet? They could not bear to be apart from each other. Tang Ji combed through Jinglin's hair as if soothing him. Jinglin was expressionless, yet one of his fingers hooked on to a strand of Tang Ji's hair, refusing to let him go. "Dine with me later." Tang Ji lovingly brushed aside Jinglin's silver hair. His gaze sent a tingle down Jinglin's spine. It also sent a tingle down Tang Ji's own spine. They could not bear to look into each other's eyes, yet they had to continue to gaze at each other with such tenderness. Jinglin felt his chest thumping. This should be how Qian Yu was feeling. The fox was so full of adoration for Zuo Qingzhou as he and the mortal soaked in each other's tenderness, unable to extricate himself. Even though Jinglin had never experienced it, he could understand Qian Yu right at this very moment. This was how much he loved Zuo Qingzhou. They could have been together. The celestial law did not permit them to, but they could still be intimate in this narrow space in the library, exchanging words and actions of love. Tang Ji turned sideways and moved down the stairs, while Jinglin propped himself up into a sitting position on the rug to watch him. He looked on as Tang Ji suddenly took a step up again and beckoned stiffly to Jinglin. Thinking Tang Ji wanted to say something, Jinglin turned his ear towards him. Unexpectedly, Tang Ji dropped him a light kiss on his ear. "This is from me," he whispered. Tang Ji cocked a brow at him before descending the stairs. Jinglin remained stunned, rooted in place for a long time, before it dawned on him who the "me" referred to. His hands flew up to cover his face, as he could no longer tell himself apart from Qian Yu. This is the end of Volume 1. Thank you for reading with me, and I'll be back before you know it with Volume 2.